wrecking yard where the past is confined. Welcome to the Wrecking Yard. I'm Jerry Wayne Longmire, and y'all are presumably still y'all. All are welcome in the Church of Internal Combustion. We just ask that you show up with an open heart. Today we're going back to 2004. You know, people still like Nickelback, and they even admit it. Everybody just seen Janet Jackson's boob. And I'm working my way through the Houston comedy scene in a 3-cylinder Hyundai accent. I'm going to tell you some stories about some people I love. Great comedians, incredible comedians that you might not have heard of, and some you've definitely heard of. But before that, let's shout out our sponsors. All right, our premium sponsor still here, bringing you the Wrecking Yard podcast today, is our buddy Happy Jack Slavinka. He wants to give away some of his comics. He's trying to build enough following. His comics are called Track Tales. All right, and it's like Calvin and Hobbes meets 70s car cultures and art. I wish I could remember what it is the art reminds me of. The art reminds me of a very specific drawing style when I was young, but I dig it. His comics are called Track Tales. They're cool. You're going to get 2 full stories while the giveaway's still going on. And you just got to email your address to jacksavvynews@gmail.com. And I'll put that in the chat and in the comments for you. And go follow him. He's on YouTube at Happy Jack Savinka 5560. And I'm really enjoying what he's doing, man. I'm happy to have him here working with us at the Wrecking Yard podcast. So you guys go follow him. Send him your address. He's going to send you some free comics, maybe. He has a community post on his YouTube that has all the rules too, so you can go check that out. And always, Everyone Racers Podcast. It's a podcast about amateur endurance racing from beginner to advanced, as well as the news, tips, and tricks that go along with the hobby. 4 friends and often teammates, Chrissy Matura, Christopher Abbott, Tim Burr, and Christian Mental Ward, discuss current racing trends and news, as well as occasional interviews and guests who are interesting people with different perspectives on racing and car culture. They are all over the place, man. Just go check these guys out. If you're into racing at all, you're going to enjoy it. Just trust me. Go check it out. It's some funny stories. Man, it is Thursday night. Is it Thursday? I don't know why I'm looking out the window like that's going to tell me. About 80 degrees. I got my AC blowing. Oh, I'm a little whipped, to be honest with y'all. I went to the gym today and I did some actual running. I haven't run. I don't really know when the last time I ran was, but I was significantly younger. But I actually did some running today, and whew, I'm a little choked up now. I also did a bunch of yard work and stuff like that. Today's journey it just takes place. I'm just going through the Houston comedy scene. I'm finding my way. I'm in a strange alien environment to me. But because of the club I started at, I got to work with all these huge name comics and all these people. Sorry. And I'm not going to waste a lot of energy on negative today. I will tell you, I have been in this business about 20 years. And I have worked mostly men with some men on stage and seen how they behave off stage. And there are certain men in this business that you're never going to see me on a stage with again, and you're never going to see me in a green room with again in life, right? And I ain't going to waste no energy on them, and some of them are big names, but I'm not going to talk about them now because, hell, people think I'm just trying to get famous. I'm wait till, if I actually get famous, I'm going to tell everybody because then it ain't going to look like I got no motivation. You better watch out, Hot Pocket. I'm coming for you. Anyways. So we'll just tell you that. I'm going to tell you how I got the Hyundai, I'm going to tell you how I got the Hyundai first, but I ain't got it yet at the beginning of this story. Y'all have heard part of this story a little bit because you heard me talk about my F-150. And in the beginning of this story, that's where we're at. Me and my brother We're fussing. I've already started comedy. I'm gonna tell you about the first night I went up. Like walk you through it. But to begin this story, I have just decided to go all in. I have quit my job and I'm all in. And I know y'all. I think I told y'all the story. Let me tell you a little more about that contest and everything that was going on. But I got to tell you how I got to Hyundai first. I have had a friend named Shelly. It doesn't matter what it is. I've had a friend named Shelly since I was about 16, 17 years old. She was dating my friend's older brother, and we ended up becoming friends on it. And Shelly is one of my. I have like three female friends, maybe more, handful over the years. That there was just never any. It was never. There was never anything. We were just friends. We were friends because of the situation or whatever. We were just buddies. Not that I mean, Shelly's a nice girl. She's a looker, but it just there was never that. We were just buds. We're buds. And Shelly, at this point where I was sort of sinking into comedy full time, Shelly kind of wanted to be my manager. She used to do all these big cheer events, and she had some experience with venues and doing stuff like that. She wanted to help me out. Look, I was dumb. I didn't need a manager right then. I just need to learn how to be funny and learn how to learn the business of comedy. But Shelly had gotten a little Nissan Murano, and she had this little 1999 Hyundai accent that she had raised her kids in, and just been a good little car for her. I think it had like 80 something thousand miles on it. Just a little shit box, nothing fancy, cheap car. But if you ever want to buy a good cheap car, talk to a stand-up comic because we put miles on them boogers, man. And stand-up comics can tell you for days stories about their best road cars, the cars that got them to South Dakota in a snowstorm, and you know. And this little Hyundai accent was perfect for that. And Shelly, out of the kindness, her and her husband now, I'm gonna call him T because he may want to keep some of his privacy. He's a good dude though. They offered to let me use this car. They probably shouldn't have. I was a freaking derelict and a train wreck. But they did, and I took advantage. I took that car. I used that car. I drove that car. I used that car to survive. And they were really good people, man. It's wild. Like we're not close anymore. But a lot of that has to do with other people. It has nothing to do. See, we were all this big group of people from like Houston that were tight, and my friend had a baby with Shelly's sister, and that sort of imploded the whole group and cast us all out into the world away from each other. I still have deep love for Shelly and T in my heart. They're people I care about. And he is one of the best dudes I ever met in my life, dude. And they were like childhood friends, and he was in love with her for years, right? But this dude was like if you he's one of the smartest, has a good job, always had a good job, very smart, knew how to earn money. Hell of a pool player, man. This dude, oh T, I don't know exact stories. I don't give you too many details, but T was in college, and T comes from nothing. He doesn't come from money. He comes, Houston has these little special neighborhoods, these little, you can call them barrio style neighborhoods. They're great places, places like Fifth Ward, where if you play by the rules, you can have a great time and acquire a great many different things. But you can get lit up quick if you're one of them dummies that gets intoxicated or high and starts breaking the rules. So if you're that kind of guy and you know it, avoid those places. It's better for everybody. Chill and relax is order of the day. But Thomas comes, dude, he's from like Cavalcade and Airline, bro. Which ain't an easy place to be a kid and ain't an easy place to come from in Houston, man. That used to be a rough joint through there. I don't know how it is these days, but That used to be a tricky place. And he probably could have done any number of things, drug dealing and stuff that would have ruined his life. But man, he was like out in college, dude, and he was sharking people for pool to pay for his college and sharked the dean's son out of like a huge sum of money and got kicked out of college or something. Still went off to the Navy, joined the Navy, had an excellent career in the Navy, came home. Just about a stand up dude. He liked hot rod. Me and him were both into cars. I always liked talking cars with him. He had a little Nissan 350Z that was out of this world that he bought and built up. And last time I seen him, he was working on a Chevelle. And I don't, knowing Thomas, he probably finished it. He's already working on another car. He's just one of those guys that gets things done. Good dude, man. I got nothing but good stuff to say about Thomas. Uh, I made a mistake. Thomas was a poker player too, but like a world class poker player. Man, I didn't say his name. Oh, sorry, Thomas. He was a world class poker player though, man. He came over one night. It was my birthday, man, and me and my friends just get together. And we just play poker for fun on Friday nights. We called it the committee of Tree Fitty. It was a good time. Well, I had made a new table for us, and on my birthday, Thomas happened to be there. One of my other buddies wasn't at the time, and Thomas, why don't you come play poker with us out there? And Thomas goes, I don't play poker for fun. I said, man, come on, dude. Just come out here and have some fun with us. We're just gonna play. We're just playing for nickels, nothing crazy. We're not going. Thomas is an excellent poker player. I'm maybe the world's worst poker player, but I can recognize talent. Come on, Thomas. Come on here and play poker with us. And we goaded him into it. It's my fault. And then Thomas sat there and took all my nickels in about three hands. This guy, it was like he's reading it was like he knew my soul, man. This dude just stared at me and knew everything about me and took me apart, dismantled me. And he got done and he flipped his cards over. It's like, I told you, I don't play poker for fun. And my bad, bro. He was too good, man. But he's a cool guy, man. That's how I got the high end. Just y'all know. A gift of a kindness. But they were just letting me borrow it. I was just borrowing it. I took advantage of that. Not a great place. I'm not in a great. I'll be honest with you. I'm just trying to survive at this point. Very first night I went on stage, Shelly and Melissa and my brother Joey, Wendy. I was dating Wendy at the time. All my friends came. I'd been talking about doing comedy forever. I had talked about it till I think people were tired of hearing me talk about it. I wanted to be a comic. I thought I did. But anyways, I had read Sam Kinnison's book. I'd read the book about Sam Kinison, and I knew I wanted to start comedy in Houston, but told y'all Wendy at the time got me tickets to go see Ralphie May. January 31st, right at the end of January 2004, somewhere in there. He's playing the Laugh Stop right there on West Gray, the old Laugh Stop. Watching Ralphie on stage that night live, I wasn't sure I wanted to do comedy anymore. I never seen anybody do what he done. Ralphie beat that crowd to death. Ralphie made me laugh so hard that my face was hurting. I couldn't. At some point, I got tired during the show because my face was hurting. My muscles in my face were hurting. And I was completely enthralled with it. He's amazing. If you ever were fortunate enough to see Ralphie perform live, then you probably saw one of the actual. I mean, everybody throws goat around and all that crap today, but he's really one of the best to ever do the job. And he did it in a way few people could follow or compete with. And everybody's got their own things to say about Ralphie. My story of Ralphie is that of kindness and generosity. After the show, I bought Ralphie's DVD. I fanboyed him. I said, man, I really want to be a stand-up comic. Ralphie goes, yeah, yeah. Just kind of played along, and I said, yeah. I just don't know how to get started. He said, well, the best open mic in the city is right here on Monday nights. And then he signed my DVD. He said, you ought to come up and sign up and try your 5 minutes. They signed my DVD. Show up Monday night. Don't be a puss. Ralphie May. Still have that DVD. And I came back the next Monday, and I brought 20 or 30 of my friends. You have a lot of friends when you start stand up comedy. They go away pretty quick when they realize you're going to be broke all the time and nothing's going to go your way for a minute. But when you start stand up comedy, you got a lot of friends, and if you're lucky, they'll come to some of your shows. When I started, like a lot of other people, I had a lot of friends that thought I was funny. They were coming to support, and I appreciate that. Knowing what I know now, I wouldn't let them come. But I think a lot of comics do that. Maybe not everybody, but a lot of us get all our friends go our first time. And I remember a guy that became my friend was hosting that night. His name was Robin Weinberg. And Robin Weinberg was funny. And I still think Robin Weinberg's very funny. I'm glad to see he's performing again. He lives in Belgium now, but that dude, I always thought he was one of the funniest people. He made me laugh. I loved working with him, and I really enjoyed getting to know him over the years. He's turned out to be a good friend. That night, I didn't know him from Adam. He brought me on stage about midnight after I'd signed up. Of course, my friends all lost their mind, and I did 5 excruciatingly horrible minutes. I wish I could remember all the jokes I wrote. I wrote what I thought was an hour's worth of jokes, and I was out of jokes in 2 minutes that night. But I know I did this one joke about how my astrological sign was Cancer, and I was doing this MC walk, MC. Oh crap! I can't remember his name. MC hammered this like crab walk thing back and forth across the stage. It was really bad, so bad. I owe somebody that watched that an apology. There's somebody out there I owe an apology for that. Probably Robin Weinberg. And of course, my friends all lost their mind for me because they loved me and they thought I was funny. But the minute I got off stage, Robin Weinberg immediately took the mic back and said, "All right, it's very clear Jerry brought a lot of his friends. If any of them leave, he'll never work in this town again." And of course, all my friends immediately left, but I stuck around because even though it was bad, it was good. I never, that first time, I mean, people, it's very much like a drug. It's very much like the first time you do substance or something. It's the best, even if it's bad. It was bad, oh, overwhelmingly bad. I'm honest enough to tell you how bad it is. But oh, I wanted to go again. As a result of my employment at the time, I was still working for Raytheon, and Raytheon the very next week sent me to Denver for a month to do a turnaround job. And I was working the graveyard shift in Denver, which was usually my preference. And but I didn't go into really late, so I found some open mics in Denver, at least 1 or 2 of them. And I went and I practiced, mostly just being on stage, being comfortable being on stage. But I got really, really comfortable being on stage while I was in Denver in a very short period of time. Like, and once you master, see, comedy is a set of things you got to learn. And in the very beginning, most important is you got to learn how to be comfortable on stage. And not everybody can do that. Some people, they still struggle with it. I have known major comedians who get a ton of anxiety before they get on stage. I was in Denver. I was beating them open mics up. Was doing them all. Was trying to learn. I was embarrassed the first time I went. I didn't want to be embarrassed next time. I don't like to not be good at things. It's not my it's not my preference. I like to be good at things. So I was like, I'll be damned if I'm gonna go in there like that. Next time I want to make some of them comics laugh. Next time I want to make some of the people that weren't my friends laugh. You know, that kind of shit. And I picked up a lot from that little experience. And when I came back to Houston, I was ready to go back to the Laugh Stop. Ready to go back and play my cards just a little differently this time. Maybe surprise some people. Not that anybody cared, but yeah, got finished with that turnaround job. I came back to Houston, and first thing I did very next Monday night was go get back on that stage. That night it went pretty good. It went so good that night that somebody was walking around collecting entrance fees. They said, we have a contest every year. It's called Houston's Funniest Person. And it's $15 to enter. And if you win, it's a $1,500 grand prize, and you get some work at some other clubs. And, I mean, that's a good way to get yourself in front of the local club owners and such. Well, I was in for a penny and a pound. I paid my $15. One of the best $15 I ever spent. Kept coming to open mic. I kept working on my set, and I was feeling pretty good about it. I was getting laughs, and I mean, you kind of got to figure all this stuff out really quick. People, I have seen guys spend years in open mics trying to figure out how to be funny. Being funny is just the given. Like, if you're going to be good at stand up, you need to get the laughs. That is just the given. It's the business and everything else that is hard to learn. It's not hard to learn how to make people laugh. You know, I mean, some people have to learn it mechanically, I guess, but I got laughs. I always got laughs was the easy part for me. I signed up for that contest. You have to understand by this point, my mind is already deep in comedy. I'm up at the Laugh Stop every night. There's stuff going on there every night. And I'm hanging out because they let comics hang out. And I could watch anybody I wanted to, you know? And so I'm up there every week watching the pros, watching the guys, watching the locals who are opening for them. I'm learning, you know, I'm going to school. This is my college. This is close thing college. This is my college. Was early early 2000s Laugh Stop, Houston, Texas. And Houston's turned out serious comics. Ralphie May, Bill Hicks, Sam Kinison, Billy D. Washington, some um Ali Sadiq, Mo Emmer. Guy some of y'all don't even know called Big Ed. Big Ed Blake. Big Ed Blake was funny as hell, man. I miss him every day. Well, I signed up for that contest, and shit, time come around, come time for my night in the prelim. So of course told everybody I knew, and of course by then my friends were tired of coming to watch me at open mic, and nobody came except my brother. Joey came to all of it in the beginning. I will say Joey supported me better than anybody. Probably the only person who's been to more of my shows than Joey is Rachel. Joey has been to, so he's gone on the road with me. He always supported me. Even when I couldn't pay the rent and shit. Even when we were fighting about a girl, he still supported me. kind of dude he is. Night of the prelims, man, I was psyched, bro. I got up there, I was hyped. I think I drew number 3 in the lineup that night. And I dropped the hammer and gave it everything I got. None of them judges had ever seen me before. I was a newcomer. I'd only been in the scene a month or two. I dropped the hammer and gave it my best set. And I never forget, this is how I met the grandfather of Houston Comedy, the great illustrious Reverend Rob Mungle. He was running the contest. Rob Mungle, one of the first winners of the contest ever. Rob comes up to me. I come off stage, and the judges go back and they do their tally and everything. And at the end of the night, they call us out and announce that me and another comic are going on to the semifinals. We had the high scores, and I ain't never won nothing. You know what I mean? I was feeling good. I come out in the lounge, and I was sort of hanging out there, and my buddy Roach come up and hugged me. We were friends, and he ran the open mic at the time. He was excited to see me doing well. At the time, I was real good friends with a guy named Eddie Cruz. We're not really friends anymore, but he came up, hugged me, and Rob Mungle walked up to me and he said, "Congratulations. You got the highest score in the whole prelims. I don't know how, but you did." And walked off. But I was incensed, you know? It's my first open door. I was ready. I was ready to go. Thought I was gonna be famous, you know. Oh, I was so foolish. Time the semifinals roll around, boy. I'm feeling good. Feeling real good. I go in the semifinals that night, and I have a really good set in the semifinals, and I come out as one of the finalists. And see, in a lot of comedy contests, this one was certainly no exception. Um, as the contest goes on, you get more and more time. But me being a very young comic at that time, when we got to doing 12-minute sets, that was everything I had. You know, every joke had to work. You know, and I was writing jokes right up to the finals. You know, just steady. And the night of the finals came, and Rich Miller is one of the judges. Outlaw Dave was a judge. These are all people I didn't know, but they were all influential. And I went up there and I gave it my best. And my friends did come out that night. My mom and dad even came. My mom and dad saw me that night, came out and watched. And I got second place. I got second place at good field. The guy got third place, went on to become a writer for Parks and Rec. Gal that won first place is still a very influential comedian and still run around. She's got a new special out. Her name's Sarah Talamas. She's a hell of a comedian, also from Houston. I got me a little. I think I got me about $700. Little check. And I remember I drove home that night and I was listening to "Give Me the Beat, Boys, and Free My Soul." Boy, Uncle Cracker version, the real bad one. And I was just right. I just thought that when I was done. I told you all that. Me and my brother got drunk. Woo, we got drunk. Started listening to Jimmy Buffett. I was supposed to leave Sunday and go to San Benitez, California, work on a turnaround project for the next 3 or 4 years. At some point in the middle of the night, I called my boss and quit my job and told him I was headed towards stardom and wasn't going to be needing to do no more turnaround work. Of course, he called me the next morning to confirm. Wished me luck. But I'm in now. I'm in. I'm in. You know, I'm a bit. I've had a little bit of success. I'm excited. Not only that, so I go back up to the club that night. It's a Sunday night. I go up to the club and I'm hanging around the bar. I get me a little drink at the bar and I'm hanging out at the bar and I'm just watching what's going on. And there's these two comedians down there talking to the owner who I just met when he gave me my check. His name's Pete. He's kind of a ball cap wearing Neanderthal, sport shorts, keychain on a long lanyard. He can swing around. Boom. He's his whole fucking he's his whole thing. Right. And he points over at me. He goes, "There's your opener. He just got second place in the contest. He's doing pretty good. Use him." And they walk over me, and one of them introduces himself as Slade Ham. And if you followed my career at all, you know who Slade Ham is. He's one of my friends that's helped me revive what I'm doing, helped me find my way. He's one of my closest friends, period. And definitely one of my closest friends in this business. Another comic is a comedian you guys recognize. At the time, I thought his name was Mo Amir, but it's Mo Am. And he's a Houston regular at the time. He's funny. Damn, he's funny. But this is years before the stardom, before the blow up. You know, he's just another Houston local like the rest of us. He's good, but he's a Houston local. And he was actually opening for Slade, and I hosted for him. And Slade was like, "Yeah, part of you getting second place in contest is you're gonna get a week to work in my room." And Slade owned a comedy club at the time in Beaumont called Comedy Texas. And I learned as much about comedy at Comedy Texas as I learned in the Laugh Stop. Be honest with you, Slade was a good teacher and a good friend. And he booked me with some good acts that I could learn from. But also that night, I inadvertently became friends with Pete. And Pete, this is all, Pete at his best was an abusive friend and a boss, and at worst, a narcissistic, violent psychopath. And club owners come in that flavor. Club owners only come in about three flavors, it seems: narcissistic, psychopath, laid back coconut Pete, you know, Jimmy Buffett, laid back people, and folks who are truly passionate about the art form. Oftentimes, you'll find that club owners are comics that didn't hit their mark, so they opened a club or they bought a club. I've worked for all of them, but Pete was one of the scariest ones. He was. We were. You ever have a friend that you like? I'm just not going to introduce him to my other friends. He was that kind of friend, you know. He took to me right off. He's kind of a. He's from. He's a little bit of a country boy. He played some football for Sam Houston stuff back in the day, but dude was a freaking nightmare. He was a yelling boss, but not everybody. I like yelling bosses. I worked under the oil. Here's the weirdest thing would be, man. You know what I hated in school when in sports? I hated yelling coaches. But you know what I liked when I worked? I liked yelling bosses. I understood yelling bosses. They reminded me of my dad. They made sense. I just didn't like them when I was trying to play a game. Pete was a yelling boss. He wasn't a very good yelling boss. Not all yelling bosses are good. Some of them you can learn a great deal from if you shut the hell up and listen. And some of them are just idiots that like the sound of their own voice. And this psychopath fell into that category. And we were friends. We were friends. He was good. He was a friend of me. We were generous. He took care of me money wise. He would pay me to work at the club, do stuff like that. He gave me a lot of gigs. But a lot of the gigs he would give me didn't really have so much to do with being his friendship, is that I was always there at the club, and he was very irresponsible and wouldn't book support comics. And he had all these little petty grievances with a lot of the locals, and all this history, and he was just, and so he would just, it was just a laziness thing. He would throw me on. I just happened to be around the club. Hey, you want to feature this week? Hey, you want to? Oh, at this time I'm hosting. I'm just a host. But that was my first. That was my first paid night at the Laugh Stop. I got paid to open up for Mo Hammer and Slade Ham sometime in 2004. And just about every night, that little Hyundai was parked up there at the Laugh Stop. Or Shelly was there for the contest. It's right after the contest, and I kind of just go full off into it. That I lost my job. I couldn't keep up rent with Joey. We had the most stuff going on, and I moved into an apartment over off. Oh, we're going to talk about that place. Never mind. We'll get in that. But all this crazy stuff's happened for me at the club, and that's all I'm focused about. Now Pete's like, "Hey man, I want to give you some more work. You're a good host, but you got to wear. You can't. I don't want you on my stage in blue jeans. You're representing the club. You're the MC. You need to dress nice. Be fairly clean cut." And that week there was a headliner working who he's still a guy I find very funny. A dude named John Evans out of Pennsylvania, and John Evans is a thrift store guy. Like he does a lot. He had his own thrift store for a while. I think he still does. He's a thrift store guy. So when John Evans traveled around doing comedy, he would hit up thrift stores. John Evans gets in town. Pete sends me to pick him up from the airport, take him to his hotel, and do that. And John says, "Well, what are you about to do?" And I said, "Well, I got to go find some slacks and dress shirt or something because Pete said I got to dress better if I want to be the host for the club." John said, "I know the perfect place. You probably ain't got much money, do you?" I was like, "No, I ain't got no money at all." And John goes, "I got the perfect place." Me and John go to the Goodwill store on Washington Avenue in Houston, Texas. And we have a good time. John's a funny dude and telling me thrifting stories and such. And I find myself a suit. Fits me. Big old me. Right there at the Goodwill store. I paid $3.75 for a black suit. Jacket, nice pair of pants went with it, and some old Rockport. I know my dad always liked Rockport shoes because they're comfortable. And I bought these old Rockport shoes, and I had them for years. I had them resold. I had them fixed up. They were fine shoes. I like them Rockport shoes. $3.50 though. I was outfitted. I went over to the Target, got myself a little dress shirt, wear underneath it, just a little button up. I went on stage that week and did my job for the first time, and I got paid for a whole week of working at the comedy club. I did 6 shows in a row, and I felt on fire. I felt like, man, this just stepping stone right here. Now, one of these comics that I had watched when I was just sitting in the back of the room watching comics was a man from Alabama named Vic Henley. And Vic Henley was an Alabama native that moved up to New York City and lived there for 30 years. And he was a good old boy, but he's one of the funniest good old boys you ever seen in your life. He was sharp, he was fast, and dude work a crowd like nobody's business. I was a fan. Vic Henley made me laugh. I wanted to be like Vic Henley. Pete says, "What are you doing next week?" "Nothing, man. I ain't got a job." He said, "So Vic Henley's going to be in town next week. You want to host for him?" Boy, did I want to host for him. You kidding me? Hell yeah, I wanted to be on that show. Robin Weinberg was on that show. He was the feature act on that show. And I had good say, and I was learning because you learn once you start doing it. You learn Friday and Saturday nights are very different crowds. Is it Steve Martin had a really funny quote one time? They asked him why he quit comedy, and he said, "The Friday night late crowd, I think was what it was." But they're all different. Friday night late crowd, they're just at the beginning of their weekend, and they're people that don't see that there's different people. Wednesday night people come out and show on Wednesday night and have a good time, and raise hell. That's my kind of folks. They make bad decisions. Thursday night people, same kind of people. People wait till Friday and Saturday to go out. I don't always click well with. 'Cause they're living a different experience than me. A lot of times, your early shows on Friday and Saturday night are your real uptight people. Your late shows, sometimes they've already been to dinner and they already pregame. They're pretty lit. Those shows get kind of rowdy. God help you if they do a third midnight show on Saturday night, because now you're really getting rowdy. I'm so psyched, man. You tell me I'm gonna host Vic Henley, and it was everything I hoped it was gonna be, man. Me and Vic Wednesday night, we hung out, we had a good time. We walked over to Sherlock's, we talked comedy and stuff. I gave him a ride back to his hotel. Thursday night, same thing. We rocked out the show. We talked comedy late in the night. Gave him a ride back. The thing you gotta know about Pete, man, Pete would fire me about once a week. Pete would get pissed up, and when I tell you he was a nightmare at times. This dude would just get mad about the most random shit and call me up and fire me, yell and holler at me on the phone, fire me, whatever. That's the way he dealt with people. On Friday night, before the shows, Vic's got to go do radio with Outlaw Dave. And Pete's like, "Why don't you take Vic over there so you can meet Outlaw Dave?" I was like, "Yeah, yeah." So I go pick Vic up at the hotel and we go over to the radio station. Outlaw Dave's cool, man. He's got this old crook that used to be on his show that's bartending. And that's where I had my first Manhattan. That guy was teaching everybody how to make a Manhattan. And my God, that's still my favorite drink this day. A really well made Manhattan. That's my fancy drink. If I want to go fancy, if I want Diamond Jim it a little bit, you see me order a Manhattan. I'm feeling a little Diamond Jim. Diamond Jim Brady and his Manhattan cocktail. I like that. I like most things bourbon. Rye, whatever you make yours. But we're on a radio show. We're having a good time. Outlaw Dave's let me talk. He's let me get a mic, and we're cutting up, having a good time. Vic Henley's great on radio. We're drinking these Manhattans and get done doing the show. Realize we got about 10 minutes to get the laugh stop. And whoo, for the first show, get there in time, be ready for the first show. Lo and behold, I can't find my car in the parking garage. There must be a million little black Hyundais in that parking garage. Me and Vic Henley walked all over that parking garage before we found the one with the red crayon melted in the passenger seat from Shelly's kid. We're driving back to the laugh stop, and we're minutes away, right? And first show's 5 or 6 minutes away, and we're minutes away from the club, 2 or 3 minutes. We're coming down West Gray, and Pete calls my phone. I answer. Where the f are you? Show's about to start 5 minutes. You don't get your ass here in about 2 minutes. I'm gonna fire your ass, and you're never gonna work here again. Da 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 da. And then hangs up on me. Of course, Vic hears it all. He's in the car with me. He goes, "What's that son of a bitch's problem?" I said, "Well," I said, "I'm late getting you back." And he goes, "It don't have nothing to do with you. It's my fault. I'm one to hang out on the radio a little longer. Why didn't he call me talking to me like that?" I was around Vic a lot for a number of years, and this is one of the few times I saw like a whole lot of his Alabama come out at him. I said, "I don't know." He said, "That's some." No, he didn't say anything right there because we were like pulling in the parking lot. Here's Pete calling again. "You son of a bitch, you're fired. I'll get somebody else to replace you. Da da da. You ain't nothing. You're fired. Da da da." And Vic said, "Give me the phone." And I just handed the phone to Vic. And we're pulling up, and Pete is standing on the sidewalk, raging on his phone at me. And we're pulling up right in front of the club. And Vic is on the phone with him going, if you talk to him like that guy, I tell you right now, you fire him, I'm leaving. I'm going to get on a plane right now and take my ass back to New York. And if I catch you talk to anybody on my show like that again, I'm going to walk up on that sidewalk and stomp a mud hole on your ass. And people didn't talk to Pete like that. You can tell it took him back. He started hollering back. Vic started hollering back. And then Vic said, well, fine then. Good. And hung up. I was like, what happened? He goes, what are you waiting for? You're supposed to be on stage. Go get on stage. You're fine. And I got out, walked by Pete. Pete was fuming, just pissed. We're going to talk. Went and did the show. Of course, by the second show, Pete was drunk. He wasn't mad anymore. He was having a good time. So I got unfired. Boy, Vic Henley railed his ass. I enjoyed the hell out of that. Vic sadly passed away during the pandemic, not from COVID, from an unrelated heart issue. He taught me more. Man, he told me one time. I think I was upset. I was like, oh, they're calling me Jerry the Cable Guy and stuff. And he goes, hey, here's look here. Are any of them people calling you Jerry the Cable Guy writing a check? I go, no, sir. He said, all right. Here's what you need to remember. If somebody ain't writing you a check, they can kiss your ass. Their opinion does not matter. And even about half the people giving you a check, their opinion don't matter either. If the check ain't big enough, tell them to kiss your ass too. Vic Henley saved me a lot of heartache with that little lesson. Another sense I would get in my feelings, you know. Comedy is very clicky. I came from a very different background than a lot of people. And Houston was full of hitters, man. Everybody was good. Caroline Picard, everybody was good. Being good was a given. That's the thing about comedy. Being good is a given. If for everybody that you watch on TV and like, oh, they're not funny at all. I'm telling you, somewhere they killed it for weeks straight in a row because being good's a given. Shooting a comedy special for a camera is not the same as a live show. I guarantee you, have them people that you might have some opinion about. If you saw them in a live show, it would change your mind. Don't base what you know off a comic, off a special, because that's a different monster altogether. Wasn't too long after that, I got to do my first road gig, you know, and it was exciting. I went to Beaumont. Woohoo! Big traveler, man. I went to Beaumont and I hosted. There was a guy named Tom Simmons, and Tom Simmons one of the coolest comics I've known. Uh, One of the most prolific writers. This man writes like 100 jokes a day or something crazy. But Tom Simmons was cool because I got it was a Friday night and Saturday night, two shows Friday night, two shows Saturday night. And I got there Friday night. I never performed at a club other than the Laugh Stop. And the first show, I ate it so bad, bro. I ate it like it was my job. You know what I mean? Like I bombed so spectacular, you'd thought that's what they hired me to do. Like just we need a guy just to eat a dick in front of this crowd, and here I come. Oh, I eat it so bad, and I was way off. Like oh. And Slade and Lee, they were both really cool with me. They pulled me aside, like, yeah, that's cool, man. Shake that shit off and come back second show. And then I got nervous because I was like, oh shit, there's another show. I got to do this again. But it's just enough motivation going to that second show and not look like that again. When that second show, I hit it a little harder. And you know, I wasn't at the height of my abilities yet, but it was a much better show. Slade and Tom, and me, all go to a Waffle House right there in Beaumont, and we talk comedy. And those are the nights I miss the most. Hanging out with some comic that you just become friends with in a diner or Waffle House, writing jokes. hotel room, whatever, just bullshit and working on material. Been fortunate to do a lot of traveling with Slade in my life. He's who I went to Africa with. He said he's one of my closest friends now, and some of my most valuable times with Slade have been on the road. But that first week in Beaumont, that first road show, it set the tone for who I was going to have to be. And still at the Laugh Stop, they're working me like crazy. By then, I've moved. I've moved into this. Oh my God! I moved into this little apartment. I didn't have much money. It's called the Beverly Hills apartment. And Beverly Hills is a little street that runs parallel to Richmond Avenue in Houston, and kind of over in the Fountain View area. It's kind of hood rat once you get off the main drag. You know, Richmond's the main drag. That's where the titty bars and the big nightclub and the Sam's Club and all that stuff are. And then one street over is the hood. That apartment complex was hood ready. I had a neighbor. I lived in the upstairs apartment. I always remember this. I lived in the upstairs. There was always homeless people and stuff down in the parking lot and stuff at night. It was a sketchy place, but I had a neighbor. I lived. There was two apartments facing each other. I lived on the one on the left side, and down here was our parking, and the one on the right side was a black dude that was a big old cowboy. When I say cowboy, I mean like the buckle, the starch jeans, the boots, the hat. Oh, I had a chew. His name was Wayne. Wayne, his lady, she's a nice lady, lived with him. She's a cowgirl for sure. They were, I forgot where they were going. They were saving up money to go somewhere. I think they were headed somewhere like New Mexico or something. They were saving up money. And I talked to them every once in a while. We would Wayne had like a little hibachi grill. He'd let me borrow it every once in a while, cook up some burgers or something. You know, I'd see him. We all kept kind of late nights, so we'd see each other. A lot of times they'd be partying. They'd invite me over, have some drinks with them. Occasionally, I had some friends over at my apartment. They'd come over, hang out, have some drinks. And one night, I pulled up to that park of that apartment. It's about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. I had my suit on, my Goodwill suit. I looked fancy in it. I got out of the car and I was a little lit. Had a few Jack on the Rocks. And I seen this dude screwing around by the trash can when I pulled in the parking lot, but I didn't think nothing about him. You know, I was just kind of off my own world. Had a good night of comedy. I can tell you who I was working with, but I'd done some shows around town that night. I was feeling good. By then, some of the other local comics at book shows were booking me to do paid shows. You know, uh, we used to do one in the Magnolia Bar and Grill. This guy named Dano, this old biker that booked shows, and Dan O'Shea, the biker comic, gave me some of my first paid shows. I met my good friend Carolyn Agnews. Me and her would go do these shows for Dan O'Shea. So I met my good buddy Mike Kohler, who's a big famous author now. And same way, doing these shows out in the middle of nowhere for Dan O'Shea for tips. I'm trying to get on stage every night I can. You know, that's important when you start. You got to get all the stage time you can get. The more stage time you get, the better. It's your 10,000 hours. You're trying to get it. I got out of the car, went to lock the car. When I turned to lock the car, that that dude that was in the parking lot was right up on me all of a sudden. And he had something in his hand. He said, "Give me your money." I said, "I ain't got no money." I had maybe $20 on me. I said, "I ain't got no money, man." And before I got a chance to talk my way out of it, he hit me with a piece of metal. He had wrenched and pried off the dumpster like one of the handles that was rusted, and clocked me right in the head with that piece of metal. I went down like a sack of potatoes. And I turned around, and he was like coming down like he was going to get on top of me, and I was getting ready to like kick him off me a little bit. He wasn't a lot to him, you know. I think I could have defended myself. He wasn't that strong. I mean, he hit me with everything he had, and I went down, but I wasn't out. You know, I was like, what the hell just happened? And I'd been in some scraps by then. You know, I've been a repo man. I'd done some stuff. I've been smacked around a few times. I can take a hit. That's one thing I can tell you. We're around. He's trying to get on top of me, and all of a sudden, I hear, "There!" And I look. I'm laying by the front tire of the car, and I can see under the car. I see cowboys boots running from the stairs. There's old Wayne. Wayne, his ladies up having drinks on the patio, saw the whole thing happen. He run down there to get involved. Wayne jumped over the front of that Hyundai accent just like he was Bo Duke. Leg out, kicked that fool right in the chest. Because it was just right over me. Brap! Kicked that dude in the chest, was on top of him. Wayne's lady done called the police. HPD shows up, hauls this guy away, talks to me. Ambulance shows up, puts me some butterflies on my head. Hang out with Wayne and his lady all rest of the night, have some drinks, and discuss his heroics. They eventually they moved out. You know, a month or two later, I said goodbye to them. Everything. I don't know where old Wayne is right now. I hope they got to New Mexico, wherever they were trying to get. I hope they got there. They was trying to buy them a little piece of land. I hope they got their little piece of land somewhere. Got the hell out of Houston. I remember I was selling insurance during the day for another comedian had an insurance agency. I was terrible at it. Oh. That's the point me and Wendy broke it off. Good. We were kind of we were friends hanging out for a little bit after the fact, but I'm pretty much single at this point. And I'm not really interested. I don't. I've been single for a little while, and I don't want anybody else. All I care about is comedy. I don't want. I'm not interested. I mean, I run around with some girls. I never look. I know I'm a big boy, but I know how to talk. I never had. I never. You know what I mean? Once I learned how to talk, I was fine. And girls, there was no problem. But I wasn't looking for anybody to be like girlfriend, anything like that. Pete told me, he's like, man, I heard and I may be getting the timeline wrong here. This may be sooner, but I'm a good 7 or 8 months into comedy. I'm well known in the local scene by that point, and I hang around with Pete a lot. I work on the club sometimes for money. Pete found out I know how to do some stuff, so I'd fix all the urinals, crap like that. And kind you gotta have special rooms to take part and whatnot. And I'm doing all that stuff for the club, helping out. I'm getting stage time. I'm getting a little bit of money for it. Now, I didn't know this at the time, but Pete's assistant, or Pete's manager, general manager, had quit. Uh, I guess because he wouldn't leave. They had some kind of relationship or something on the side. He was married, but I guess they had some sort of relationship on the side. Gone sour. I don't know all the details behind it. And I didn't find it out 2 years later. That's what happened. She was a nice girl. That sucked. Uh, but at the same time, Pete had to hire a new general manager, and they were interviewing people. And I remember he told me I went up there to work on the club that day. They said, "We hired a new general manager. Her name's Rachel. She'll be here tonight. I want you to meet her." Sure. Me and Pete were working on this table. There was this one pole in the lounge of the laugh stop, and it was kind of a hard place. It was kind of a badly placed pole because it was in the way of a lot of stuff. And we had taken a table and cut it in half, cut a circle out in it, and put some rubber in there, and made a table that went around that pole. And we were proud of our creation, and we were sitting at that table, and Pete said, "She's here." And I turned the door open. Here comes Pete's wife, Vanessa, and this other girl. This other girl is just blue eyes and smiles, and brown hair, and she's just bad, you know. I know she's bad. She comes, sits down at the table. Pete introduces us. Him and Vanessa have to go upstairs to do some business. For the first time in a very, very, very long time, I found myself sitting at a table with a beautiful girl that I couldn't talk to. I didn't. I didn't have. I didn't have words for her. She's gorgeous. That didn't scare her. I've been around pretty girls. She was also a little like me. Somebody who grew up somewhere else and was off in the city living a new adventure. And I did find out that night that she was engaged to somebody, and well, that's not for me. You know, I'm not that type of dude. So, and a girl like her, of course, she's engaged to somebody. Of course, she's got a dude. I knew the minute she walked in, she had a dude. You know, brother, I was awestruck with her that night. I mean, I knew I couldn't be with her. I knew she's engaged to this other dude. And me and her actually become friends. I finally learned how to talk to her. I think once I found out she was engaged to somebody else, I could talk to her. We're together all the time. We're at the club. We're hanging out all the time. We're good friends. I eventually meet her dude, and the worst part about him is he's a perfectly nice, likable guy. You can't even hate this dude. He's just a nice dude. You know, I mean, things didn't work out for them. They're clearly y'all know that their trajectory was different, but I couldn't be mad at the guy. He was a nice guy. Me and him got along great, and but I was building a family with these people. So my friends had kind of all fallen by the wayside because I was always asking them to come to a comedy show, and I wasn't doing anything else. I wasn't hanging out with my brother. I wasn't going to do fun stuff with my friends. I was at the comedy club every chance I got, trying to get some stage time, trying to get on stage, trying to get noticed, and I was getting a lot of attention. It was funny. I'll say that. Any of my failures to take off in my comedy career have never had anything to do with not being funny. They mostly had to do with dumb mistakes I made and things I did behavior wise and opportunities I blew. You know, Rachel's friend, she was putting me up for everything. Montreal Showcase, whatever, man. I was in it. And I was doing my best every time. One of my favorite people at that club was it was a guy that Pete hired. His name was Rico. Rico was a bartender. Rico was an opera singer and a bartender. He was good too, man. And Rico was my counsel for a long time. I'd sit at that bar and drink, and I'd talk to Rico. Rico would teach me a little bit about life, at least what he knew of it. We always got along. I still know Rick to this day. I talk to him on Facebook every once in a while. He's good people, man. He's I can tell you he is beloved in Houston, Texas. That man must have bartended everywhere. I don't know anybody in the bar industry that don't just love the man. Another thing I'm not telling you, I'm not going to go I don't want to glorify this, but y'all know I done run into a little problem with substances before. I was working in the oil field and I got away from that. I met this dude named Nick Aludo, and we were kind of in the same class of comics. We started, me, him, and this other dude named Ryan Thalber, and we were all in the same kind of. We kind of came up together in that scene, and a lot of people have a lot of things to say about Nick, and I know he has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way over the years. Nick was pretty much always a friend of me. He was an annoying friend, but he was a friend of me, and we. Nick's problem, I think, where him and people got. He was kind of a weird dude, but he was always trying to operate at a level he wasn't really at yet. And but I've been accused of that many times myself, and some folks call it ambition. But Nick liked the punk scene. He was into punk music. So was I. I've been going to Fitzgerald. Well, Fitzgerald starts doing comedy nights, and we start going over to Fitzgerald's one night doing comedy Tuesday and Wednesday nights. You get to perform on the same stage that Stevie Ray Vaughan used to play songs for $3 a song on. Some historic. It's a Fitzgerald's was historic in Houston. I already have my history there, the El Camino. One night, Nick offers me a little key bump of some flour, and I thought, what's the harm? To help me get home. And all it took was that taste. And I never was no slobber and ate it, falling all over myself. But I was a functional one. And the thing was, I told you about them little barrio neighborhoods. Well, me and Nick had friends in them neighborhoods. We'd go hang out in them. We knew the rules. And I could go in those neighborhoods and I could get the kind of flour that me and all my friends at the comedy club liked. They were popular people. I had it on hand, and I could sell them enough of it to pay for mine. And it was just a period of time there, but that's what I would do after a show. Had me a little baggie. Never did. I didn't like doing it before the show because it messed up my time and throwed me off. Boy, after the show, I'd do that. Sit there and have drinks in the lounge. Boy, you drink a lot of Jack on the rocks. And got a little bit of flour in your nose. Nick at sometime that time went over. There's a little bar called Rudyard's on Wall, and Nick wasn't getting much play at the Laugh Stop. He started a little comedy night over at Rudyard's, and that was great. Boy, Rudyard's was one of the best stages in Houston back then. It was a great place. We had a lot of stuff. We had, we had Comedy Showcase, which down off, 45 and Fuquay. And then we had the Laugh Spot. I would go over there and do spots. I hated the owner of that place. He's dead. I ain't going to say nothing bad about him now, but was told if you don't have nothing nice to say about somebody, don't say anything. And I ain't got nothing nice to say about Don Learned. So, but I did do a lot of stage time in his club. So I'm grateful for that. I had one particular friend, one of them neighborhoods I dealt with his whole family. His name was Big Gene. Big Gene was a credit to his name. He's a big old boy, big old Mexican fella. Lived off in the hood, and had a cousin named Super Dave. And if you're my age, you don't know any Super Daves in your life. You need to make some more Mexican friends. I think every Mexican family I knew was friends with had a Super Dave in it. I've known like 5 or 6 Super Daves in my life, and one of them was a white dude that was illiterate, but he was a hell of a bartender. He's a crazy old dude. But they've all been fascinating, unique individuals. I find myself a fan of Super Daves when I meet them. Big Gene was a troubled soul. I spent a lot of nights hanging out in his Nissan Maxima with him. He liked them pills, and boy, they were just ruining him. Go over there, get my stuff from him, end up hanging out with him for an hour. I think Gene got killed by his girlfriend. I suspect his girlfriend killed him. He had a girlfriend that was a real witch, and she wanted in on his business. And I think she switched out his pills for some pills he shouldn't take one night and killed Gene. Because I know she came looking for me, trying to do business for me right after that. And I was like, I don't want nothing to do with you. And then, but too long after that, some of Gene's other family came to me looking for her. I don't know if they ever found her. That wasn't my business. I will say one of the funniest things that Gene ever did is one night Gene came. I was doing a big show, and Gene came to bring me some flour at the comedy club, and I got Gene tickets to watch the show. We did our little bit of business before the show, and I went up there and did my show. And after I come off, he's like, "Man, Jeremy, I don't even want to sell this stuff to you anymore. You're too good at this. You're gonna ruin your life doing this other crap. You're too good at this. You need to stop doing this shit, man." I heard Rich Fire talking that way. When your guy tells you need to quit, you know, like maybe it's time to lay off. God, I was on fire every time I got on stage. I felt good. And I know I probably felt like more than I was. But I would get little things every once in a while. I was getting bumped up I got to start doing some feature work. That's the middle set. You know, that's good 20 or 30 minutes. And I got me a good 20 or 30 minutes. I mean, I had to do the same 20 or 30 minutes every night because that's all I had. They were letting me feature. And I told you, I got to work with some great comics. I got to work with Aisha Tyler, Scott Kennedy, rest in peace. I love Scott Kennedy. Scott Kennedy hung out with me and helped me write so many jokes in the beginning. He used to do shows for the military. He's just a really good dude, man. We lost a real one when Scott Kennedy left. And I debated whether or not to tell y'all this next story, but I'm just going to tell it to you. And it's going to make me sound like a braggart, but I guess maybe I am. But I got booked to feature for a very influential, at the time, she was a big name comic out of New York City. I ain't gonna say her name, but I'm sure if you hear the story, if you know anything about comedy in that time period, you probably know who I'm talking about. But she was what happened is Wednesday night, I was trying to impress the club owner, so I went up there and gave her my hottest 30 minutes Wednesday night. And I put it on her. She had to work, get out of the hole I put her in. Some people loved me. She did that mistake. Comics do, even old headliners sometimes, where she went up and she tried to tear me down a little bit, make fun of me, and the crowd was already on my side. They liked me. They didn't want this New Yorker to make fun of one of their own. They didn't care for it. It didn't go her way. And the next night when I get to the club, Thursday night show, I get informed that my time's been cut down to 20 minutes. All right. I tried to exchange pleasantries with her, but she had no interest in talking to me. Whatever. So I went out there, did my show again. Well, when you know it, Thursday and Wednesday night crowds are just my people. They wanted to hear a guy. I had, some stories then. I was telling some stories about my life in the oil field and stuff I'm about to start tapping into, again. And I had a good closing joke that was really hitting hard for me. And I went there. It was about a 5-minute bit, and it was hitting hard. And I hit it again. There was a whole thing about Leonard Skinner getting in the Rock and Roll Music Hall of Fame. At the time, they were not in there. And it was a whole rant about how, Houston and Texas controlled all the space, and Florida controlled all the space stuff, and most of the armories were in the South. And if Leonard Skinner didn't get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, by God, there's about to be problems because we got all the space shit and all the. Well, it was a whole thing. I'm going to bed. I can't barely remember it, to be honest with you. I went up there and did it again. Beat her to death. I knew it. I was proud of it. That's what I was trying. That's what I thought the job was. Beat the person in front of you to death. I thought I was going to get a compliment from her maybe for once. She'll say anything to me that night, and I hang out with the crowd after the show. And next Friday night, I come in there, got my suit on, ready to go on stage, get ready to do the Friday early show, and Pete comes up to me and says, "Hey, man, I need to adjust your time. We're only going to have you do 15 minutes." Well, now I'm getting suspicious. Like, I ain't never got my time cut. Like, what's happening? Why, am I not doing good? Why are y'all cutting my time? He said, "Man, it's his headliner. She wants to cut your time. I got to do it." All right, man. So I go out there and I do it again. Even though it's a Friday, I've learned them Friday early crowds. I've learned not to cuss as much. I've learned to get their attention and rock and roll on them. And I do it and I do it. And I go in there and I rock and roll on them. And after that show is over, while we're waiting for them to turn over the room, I go to walk up the stairs. There was a stairs to get up to the office where the green room was, but you didn't hang out at the green room if you wasn't the headliner. And I go to walk up the stairs, look for Pete to ask him a question. And I hear this comic railing him in his office. "Can't believe you put this redneck in front of me. What am I supposed to do with that? Da 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 da. I won't cut his. You get somebody else. Da 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 da." She's pissed, and all she's doing is bitch about everything I'm doing wrong. What am I supposed to do with that? Damn, he doesn't fit my show. Yada yada yada. Hey, he's on back downstairs. Here comes OP. "Hey man, second show. I want you to do about 7 minutes." All right. Well, now I know the deal. But I'm pissed. I go out there and I give it 7 minutes. 7 good minutes. And she ain't happy. You know, she is not happy. She's not happy with me. She's not happy with Pete. I didn't care. I'm doing my job. You can't do your job. That's on you. Instead of bitch about me, maybe you should be focused more on what you can do to improve your job. I don't know. You know, but it just feels like I'm getting punished for this lady who can't do her job. That's what it feels like. And it's not a good feeling, you know. Boy, if I can't remember how to get this back together, I'm gonna feel like a fool. Like a fool. I really thought that's uh, Well, she ain't happy. I ain't happy. Ain't nobody happy. Pete's getting railed all the way around. I don't think Pete's happy. He's not having a good time. Man, am I just a crazy person walking on and not remember how this goes? At least it's all red. It's beautiful. Just go ahead and wax the deck on it. To tell you, Friday night, I go, I'm pissed. She's done railed about me. I done caught her railing about me. You know, it's an unwinnable situation for me. You're not gonna go up against a headliner like that, but I'm pissed, man. We'll come back to Club Saturday night for the last two shows of that week. And apparently she's been all over Pete again. She don't want me on the show. Yada yada yada. I do 7 minutes again and I just of course wipe it out again. Now here's the problem. It doesn't really have anything to do. It does have to do with me, but you have to understand that even though Houston is a very blue, progressive, liberal city for the most part, Houston's still in Texas, and Texas Texas liberals still like guns and whooping some ass every once in a while. They're not quite the same as the rest of the country. You know, like it's a different thing here. They still, you know, it's not quite as progressive here as it gets made out to be, and especially not at that time period. And this lady is spending her entire time on stage talking about being a Jewish lesbian in New York City. And you see a lot of New York comics do that. They go other places and they talk about New York, and nobody gives a crap. If you ain't in New York, most of us don't give a damn about New York. But sure enough, that's what she was doing, and it just wasn't. Good old boy with a smile on his face and an affable attitude was killing her. Wasn't because I was a great comic yet. I mean, that's what I assumed, but I was putting it on her. But she must have got really nasty after the first show and said something really ugly to Pete, where he finally had enough because he came to me before the second show and he said, "Do 30 minutes, last show of the week." Yeah, you know. And by then I wouldn't even pretend anymore. I was like, "Oh, she ain't gonna be hot at you about that." I don't care. F her. Go up there and do me 30 of your best minutes. You better destroy. And I did, boy. I went up there and beat the piss out of them people and moshed her ass. And I don't hold her any animosity other than that was a really crappy way to treat a comic, but you know, different show. I would never do that. I personally prefer to work with guys who I think are very funny. I personally prefer to work with comedians who I think are. I want murderers row in front of me. I don't want my crowd to sit there and watch a comic that's not funny in front of me, so I can feel good about my ego when I make them laugh. I would rather somebody go up there and destroy the place, and I have to work harder because my comedy gets better and the crowd has a better time, and I feel better about selling people tickets to see something like that. Once you get you, if you see somebody opening for me, it's because I think they're funny. Somewhere in this time period, I can't tell you 100% sure when it happened, but Rach and her guy break up. They split up. But you don't want to be that dude, right? And I think maybe at the time I was dating somebody else. There was a couple girls in that time period. A girl named Jessica who was a vegetarian, and then broke up with me and started eating meat. So that'll leave you wondering what you did wrong. Me and Rachel are having these little moments because we're doing stuff for the club, running around. I remember the first time she got in a Hyundai with me and she saw that melted crayon in the seat with Shelly's kid. And she just sits down anyways. I was like, ah, she's a winner. I could tell she's a little freaked out about it. It was a gross car. I didn't keep it clean. But I got to her that day. I had just seen the movie 51st Dates and I was all wrapped up in the soundtrack. And I had burned it onto MP3 for when me and her rode around because I wanted to turn her on to this because I thought she'd dig it. And she did so much that I found out the other night we were talking about all this that she went out immediately and bought the movie and the soundtrack. And that's back when you had to go to a music store or a store to get it, you know. And she immediately went out and bought it. So I had worked in there a little bit. We weren't romantic or nothing like, but I already had a thing for her. I can tell you that. I had a thing for her the first night I seen her at that table. I didn't think she was going to be mine, but I sure wanted her to be. But we were just having all these little moments, these little moments of friendship that were building up to building us. We were going to be at work. At some point, I start doing road gigs. I start getting some gigs farther away. You know, I go do a triple run. That's a crazy run up in Montana where you drive 7 hours one way one day to do a gig, and then drive 6 hours back the other way to do a gig, and then drive 8 hours back that way to do a gig. By the end of it, all you have is a car with a shit ton of miles on it and no money. That's the way all them runs were back then. That's why you know, I did those years of living in my car and sleeping in my car and doing those runs. It sucks, man. It eats your soul. It's fun because you get on stage. Comedy's like a weird thing, man. Comedy's if somebody called you up, said, "Hey, man, there's a hotel room in Delville, Alabama. Inside that hotel room, there is a bucket on the floor, and in that bucket on the floor is $100. All you got here's the key. All you got to do is drive to Alabama and get it." You'd be like, "Hell no, I ain't driving to Alabama for $100. You out of your monkey mind. I ain't driving to Alabama for $100." But with comedy, then they go, "Well, if you do it, you get to be on stage for 15 minutes." You're like, "Hell yeah, let me pawn some shit so I can afford to go." And that's what comedy was. And it was just and it's nonstop. You do it all the time. You miss everybody else's events because you're always on stage. You don't go hang out with your friends on the weekend because you're doing comedy. You get a little isolated except for your comic friends. Some point there, I did one of those trips. Come back and the transmission was acting up on the Hyundai I was still borrowing. I didn't know what to do. I called Shelly. Shelly, good friend as always. She said, "Well, I think that car has a warranty on it." Well, unbeknownst to me, I never heard anything like that at the time, but Hyundai had a 100,000 mile drivetrain warranty, and that car had 92,000 miles on it when the transmission started acting up. And all we was going to have to do was prove to Hyundai that the transmission had been serviced at regularly scheduled intervals. Well, thank God for Tom and Shelley. They had a friend that had a transmission shop. And by God, he didn't write up a receipt showing we had that and take it over to Hyundai. They put a brand new transmission in that 92,000 mile car. I ain't really got a lot. The worst thing about this car is it is absolutely reliable all the time. That little 3-cylinder. I mean, you weren't gonna beat 80 miles an hour, but by God, it'll do it all day long. It'll get you where I drove all over this country on $10 at a time. That little car would do it. It's a perfect little car. Been more perfect if it'd been mine, but it wasn't mine. I was borrowing it. They were being patient. Sure, Thomas was about ready to choke me about half the time. And my other problem's getting worse too. The nights are getting longer. I'm forgetting to do stuff because I'm staying up all night. But I'm hanging out with cool people, man. I meet one of my favorite people from the scene that time is a guy goes by Chuck Savage. Chuck Savage was just Chuck Savage is the guy everybody wants to be. He had a rock band. He was a good comic. He was one of these people that's just good. He made music. He was just good at whatever he did. And he's the guy. He'd show up with two girls, but he's leaving with both of them too. You know what I mean? He was just too cool, dude. Everybody wanted to be Chuck Savage. Chuck Savage took me to the third floor cantina for the first time. I have a terrible history with College Station. Every time I go to the third floor cantina, I almost die. It's been terrible. There's been car accidents. There's been crazy snow incidents. Some of y'all have heard the story I tell. I tell a very lengthy story on stage about the third floor cantina. Nothing good for me has ever happened at the third floor cantina. I ain't never had a good show at the third floor cantina. It's not one that I was proud of. I've done other shows at College Station. I may never go to College Station again because the last time I was at the third floor cantina. That just ain't my town. But Chuck took me there the first time, and that show was okay at night. It was, this back early two. This like 2004, 2005. Chuck had this old '90s Cadillac, big old Cadillac. He liked driving that Cadillac around. Chuck smoked reefer. Chuck was cool, man. Chuck would tell you stories about Red Sovine and old country music. He was a music fanatic, and he had great stories about playing with rock bands. And we would talk about Lonesome Dove for hours and recite lines and rudeness of the man. I won't tolerate it. Chuck had done everything. He'd been in a hurricane. He'd done all the cool stuff. He'd been he sunk a boat in a hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. Like he was a guy that had a wild life and really cool stories. And he was a good friend to me. And I remember that night we went out to that third floor cantina. And even little old gal, man. I ain't gonna divulge anybody's secrets. Told you I don't kiss and tell, but I did some kissing and not telling that night at College Station. It was a result of hanging out with old Chuck. We get ready to leave, and it's very late. We're headed back from College Station in that Cadillac. Chuck has a big old spliff, and he fires that spliff up, and we're listening to Colorado Kool-Aid on the radio. We're bebopping down this road, and this road at the time that we're on, a little back road, it goes straight, and then it kind of S's and does that. And the rest, it's pretty much just field, and a little light ditch. We're just hooting, hollering, running down the road, and all of a sudden that curve runs up on us, and Chuck goes, "Well, shit!" And he goes, "Hold this," and he hands me his J, and I take the J, and we go off the road. And when I tell you, this man just took a hold of that wheel of that Cadillac, got us back up on the road, the other side of that. We just cut right through that field, like you're driving in Forza. You know what I mean? Like right to you hear that Cadillac muffler bouncing off everything. Bam, we back on the highway. Give me that John back. I'm back on. I'm still friends with Chuck to this day. I adore Chuck. He's one of those people that really, man. One night he did me a solid, and for a period of time, I was one of the few rural style comics in Texas. The owner of Laugh Stop like that. He wanted me to book Sunday nights. He wanted me to do a once a month show and call it the Southern Slam Comedy Jam and book kind of blue collar type dudes. They were selling good at the time. If you remember, they were on a big tour and they were kicking ass. And I started booking. That's how I met Rodney Norman. Rodney Norman was one of the headliners of the Southern Slam Comedy Jam, and me and him became friends, and we've remained friends for a very long time. Rodney Norman's one of those people that I value a great deal in stand up comedy, and I value a great deal in life. But one time I hired this guy, and I'm going to tell you his name. His name's John Wesley Austin, and I didn't want to book him because I didn't like him at the time. I didn't think he was sincere. I didn't think he was Before that, he'd been a comic with a different name and a different act, and now all of a sudden he was this cowboy guy when the blue collar comedy stuff blew up. And whatever, I got no ill will towards him. I mean, he can do his thing. I'm doing my thing. Don't matter. I don't waste a lot of energy on that. But at the time, I wasn't into the dude. I didn't want to book him, but Pete made me book him. Well, they pulled out of the show at the last minute. No warning or anything. Day of the show. Shit, I ain't got a headliner now. Talking to Chuck Savage. Chuck goes, I used to play with a country western band. I can throw on an accent when I need to. I put on my cowboy hat. He played an upright bass while he was on the stage. He said, I put on a cowboy hat. I'll come headline it. I'll be Buck Savage. And I was like, this is the dumbest thing I've ever heard of. I go tell Pete. He yells at me and threatens to fire me. And boy, this better go my way because we're not refunding it. If we start refunding tickets tonight, I'm fired, son of a bitch. And I'm nervous all night. We got a bunch of people in the showroom. We start doing this show. And I called Buck Savage to the stage. I'd host my shows. I called Buck Savage to the stage. Here comes old Chuck, that cowboy hat on, that upright bass, boy. He got his sleeves rolled up, pack of cigarette in his sleeves, old button up, pearl snap. Said cowboy boot. He looks the part, man. I mean, he's a good old boy, He really is a good old boy. He's just old Houston rock and roll dude. And we're a little country here in Houston. You can't help living in Houston not be a little country. Buck Savage takes the stage, blows the place away. He does a great job. Chuck's a funny guy. Saved my bacon. I'm still partying. I get to hanging out with this dude. And I've become friends with the lead singer of a local punk band called Vatos Locos. Nicoludo introduced me to the guy. His name was Ed Reyes. And me and Ed, boy, we like hang out and party together. We both like a little flower. Ed and me got so tight. Anytime I walked into a place that Vatos Locos were playing, they would call me out from the stage and start playing a punk rock version of I hear the train a coming. It's roaring around the bend. Yeah. Me and Ed, he lives over off kind of like Wayside. He lives uh, with his mom's at the time, and he sits out. He builds guitars for people out in the garage. And me and him will hang out, get lit, and while he worked on guitars and singing stuff. Well, he would play a killer version of Free Bird, like a punk version. I'm driving all over the place doing shows. I start going to Jackson, Tennessee. I start going to Memphis. Start going to Alabama. Start going to New Mexico. I go do a run in New Mexico. I'm getting out there. I'm starting to get it under my belt. Get some, doing a lot of living in my car, sleep in my car. I remember the first time I went to Memphis to do a show. I didn't really have any money, man, and but I'd never been to Graceland, and I wanted to go to Graceland so bad. I'm a huge Elvis fanatic. Have been, and probably always will be. This is back before that movie come out. Now that movie would come out, it cost about $200 or $300 to get in Graceland. Now it's ridiculous, but back then I think it was about $25 for the day to get in there and see all the cool stuff. And I was standing outside the gates and realized I didn't have the money to buy me a ticket to go in to see Graceland. The thing I like about people, especially in West Tennessee, is they sound like my people. My voice feels at home in West Tennessee. I meet a lot of people that talk like me there. And that's where a lot of my people are from Humboldt and Jackson, Tennessee. Papa Longmire, all them. That's where they come from. On the other side of my family, I'm a sixth generation Texan, but on that side of the family, it's a lot of Tennessee blood. And I was looking at all the Elvis memorabilia that they had out there by the ticket office. Wishing I could go inside, but knowing I didn't have the money to spend on that. And This lady, it sounded just like my Meemaw, spoke up behind me. She said, "Excuse me, sir." And I turned around and she said, "Do you want to go in?" And I said, "Yeah, I love Elvis Presley. I've never been. I really want to go in there, but I don't make a lot of money. I don't really. I'm just in town for the day. I don't have the money to go in, so I'm just looking at the stuff." She said, "I love Elvis Presley. I've been to Graceland more times than I can count since I was young." I said, "Man," she said, "Yeah." She said, "I tell you what." She goes, "I'm always trying to get my grandson to come up here with me, but he just don't have any interest in it. Would you go through the tour with me today? And I can tell you all the stuff I know too." And I said, "Absolutely." And that old woman bought me a ticket. I don't know who her grandson is. He ought to be ashamed of himself. She was a delight. And she knew everything about Elvis Presley. And I had the best time going through Graceland with that sweet lady. And she also bought me lunch. She was really kind. She took me to the Blue Plate. That's the first time I went to the Blue Plate Diner. And she bought me lunch at the Blue Plate Diner. Get my show in Memphis that night, drive back home to Houston. Spirit renewed. I done been in the chapel of Elvis. I done seen the jungle room. I done seen the cars. I done seen the plane. By on paper, everything should be going my way right now, but it's not because I got this problem. And instead of hanging out after shows and networking with the right people and talking to the right people, and I'm going off to party, and I'm just throwing everything else down the drain. Or I am hanging around some of those events, and I'm getting a little out of hand. I had a really good opportunity. A guy named at the time Cowboy Bill Martin hits me up and says, "I'm about to do this tour called Cowboys Like Us Tour. I think you're a good fit for it." And I went out and I did some shows with him and another dude, and the shows went well enough, but it was my offstage behavior that basically got me decided that I wasn't a good fit for that tour, and I lost it before it even got started. At the same time, Ralphie May was taking me on the road with him every once in a while, getting to do some shows with him, and getting to know him a little bit. And I'm telling you, this is the guy that I went and saw when I wanted to be a comic, and then I'm getting to work with him, getting to be friends with him. Ralphie was very generous to me. He was a very kind human being, and nothing in my life will ever replace watching Ralphie destroy 6 sold-out shows in a row, just beat people to death. Just a powerhouse on stage. I don't care what anybody's got to say about it. Man was he was a better friend to me than I deserved at the time, for sure. I'll tell you that. Me and Kelly, his name's Lee Martin nowadays, but we do a tour now together, a little Christmas tour, and we're still very good friends. But I had a bunch of growing up to do. He was pretty hot headed back then too, but I'm not making good decisions. There's this girl I like, but I'm going to get my act together. I want that girl to like me back. But I think about her every time I listen to that soundtrack. Every time I hear old Wayne Wonder. It's Wayne Wonder. It covers "Who's Gonna Drive You Home." It's one of my favorite car songs. But I think about me and her in that car listening. Who's gonna drive you home? Mm. Things are happening to me all around it. I can't get my head out of my ass to see it. The universe is setting me up. I don't realize it. All I'm concentrated on is all these opportunities I'm losing, I'm blowing and screwing up. And why am I not going anywhere? And I'm blaming everything else in the world except for the reason, which is me. And we're all guilty of that. We all go through that, I think. Maybe if you don't, you're a great human being. But same time, Shelly's tired of me driving her car all over the place. And she's like, "Look, we really need to sell that car." And I felt like it's my job to sell the car for her because I've been using the car. I wanted to get her good money for it, and I cleaned that car up really good, and I sold it to Ed Reyes from Patos Locals. I don't know what all he did with that car, but Shelly was happy. She got her money. I got her a good price for the car. It was happy. He got him a good car. I remember the day we finalized paperwork on that car. I went. Me and my mama used to go to the movies every once in a while. It was the last time I went to the movies with my mother. Sold that car that day, and I was so happy to have that stress off my shoulders. And I had a little money. I was going to go buy me something else. By that point, I started bartending at night at a place called the Late Night Pie. It was a late night pizza joint over on Elgin. It was raucous, working with a bunch of tweakers and heroin addicts, and it was a good time. I was making a little change on the side. But I've been excited because that was the year the movie was called Walk the Line, and it was the Johnny Cash story. And I'd been seeing the trailers. Me and my mom been talking about it, and I was so excited. I thought I was Johnny Cash. You know what I mean? I done read his autobiography. Maybe I hadn't read it yet, but I thought I was Johnny. I love Johnny Cash. Thought I was Johnny Cash. And every trailer for that movie made me think I was more. I just wanted to be cool like Johnny and Chuck. I was never cool. I was never the cool guy. I wanted to be the cool guy. I was way too much of a dork to be as cool as those guys were, but I wanted to be the cool guy. This is one of my favorite little stories about my mother, and tried to tell this story on stage, and just the timing. There's too much context, but I can tell you guys the story. But me and my mom went to see Walk the Line together out there at the Katy Mills Mall. We're having a good time watching that movie, and there's a scene in that movie where Reese Witherspoon, who's playing June Carter Cash, tells Johnny Cash that she goes, "Well, I didn't have the look." He's talking about how funny she is. She goes, "Well, I had to be funny because I didn't have the looks or the pipes to help the family. You know, the Carters were a singing family." And she said, "I didn't have the looks or the pipes like my sister and my mama. So I had to learn to be funny so I could do something to be a part of the family." And I guess I laughed a little too hard at that. But it struck me funny. It was something I felt like I could understand. It struck me funny, and I laughed a little too hard at it. I'll never forget. My mama reached over and Mama Pat on my shoulder, and she said, "You know that's not true." And then I really started laughing because I was like, "I didn't even think it was true until you did that. When you patted me on the shoulder and told me it's not true, now I 100% think it's true." Me and her went back and forth about that all the way home. That's the last time. After that, me and Rachel get together. We have kids. And you get too busy for your mama, and then one day she's gone. That was that was the excuse me. That was the last time we went and saw a movie together. I left that movie wanting to be Johnny Cash, buddy. Because let me tell you, one of the first things I did with my little bit of spending money is I bought me a new suit. And I hope I got a picture of it to show y'all. But this suit had ostrich traps up here on the shoulders. Looked like something Dwight Yoakam wear. A guy named Salvi made it for me. Boy, you could. I had my white snake skin boots, rattlesnake boots, and my ostrich skin suit. Boy, you couldn't tell me nothing once I had that suit on. I thought I was, thought I was some kind of somebody. I'm gonna tell you, that suit made me feel like something. As ridiculous as it looks, it made me feel some kind of way. I also bought a Toyota T100 from a tweaker that worked at the late night pie named Jason. Had a busted out windshield and a spun rod bearing. Doesn't matter. I got it all fixed. I fixed it all up at my dad's house, and then I never could get a title on it because that dummy went to prison. and I never could get a title on it. And I ended up selling it to my buddy Mike Kohler to use on his ranch. And I don't know what all he did. I rebuilt the engine, sold it to him. He gave me a little money for it, and I ended up getting me something else. But I didn't have much experience. I rebuilt a Toyota T100 that a tweaker had destroyed, thrown things through the windshield, ripped the gear shift out, spun a rod. I guess when it spun a rod bearing, he lost his mind, trashed the rest of the truck, back windshield was kicked out. So I spent all this time going around the junkyard, getting parts, fixing this little Toyota up, and drove it a handful of times, but never could get it legal. So getting stuff legal in Texas is a nightmare. I think that's where we're going. I think that's where we're going to call it quits this week on that. I mean, there's more stuff having that little car, and there's no little cart comes after it. But those are different stories, you know. So right after that, I get this little Ford Contour, and that's a whole nother different chain of things. That's where I start getting it together. I will tell you this, just because this is a funny little thing. There's lots of reasons I got away from that substance that wasn't doing me any favors. Lots of reasons. But sometimes it takes a trigger, somebody to say something, get your head right. And one night I was featuring for Ralphie May at Comedy Texas, and I was hanging out with my good friend Slade Ham. If you don't know him, you should go look him up. He's doing big things. He's an author. He's a hell of a stand-up comic. But I suspect if you like me, you already know who he is. But we're hanging outside the comedy club afterwards. And Slade says, "Hey man, me and Ralphie are gonna go over to the casino. You want to go to the casino with us?" And I go, "No, I'm not. I'm not really much of a gambler." And Slade looks at me and goes, "Bro, you're 250 pounds and you put that stuff up your nose every night. Don't tell me you don't gamble." Man, I was so pissed at him. That stuck in my head. I went back to the hotel that night. I had my little package. I ain't gonna tell you I quit that night. I didn't. But boy, I was pissed at him all night because I couldn't stop thinking about that. And it was within a couple of weeks I was done with that stuff for the last time. Mostly. One little slip up. But after I was done with that. And that wasn't really that hard to get away from. You just stop calling the people that get it for you, you know. You just lose some of those phone numbers. Yeah, that damn Slade, that thing stuck in my mind. And boy, tell me you don't gamble. This this guy, Slade's good people, man. Let's go over some comments real quick. And hold on, I might pull them up here. Dadgummit, I thought I had everything set up perfect this week, and look at me. It's all right. We're gonna get them here one way or another. Oh, here we go. At Hot Rod Hustle 5456. At some point, you and I have had to cross paths. I can relate and know every area you're talking about in the same time period. Keep up the good work. Thanks, brother. And for what it's worth, I wasn't a great person a lot of those times back then. And if we crossed paths and I was a first class 750, that's on me. I'm a much better person now. So my bad. I'm hoping some of you didn't cross paths with me back then. Let's see here. Oh, well, here we go. At Chad DeSantis 5333. Are we ever going to meet anyone from these stories? Rachel's probably on the other side of the wall, and she's in every one of them. Hoping to meet more of your family when you go get your mom's VW. I drive a brick nose now, 88 F-150, former Coca-Cola fleet tune turned farm truck. I don't. My wife enjoys her privacy, so I don't put her in videos, and I have some staunch feelings about putting children in videos. My children are both minors. When they're of age that they can make a decision they want to do some stuff with dad, we'll do that. But I like to give them. They didn't choose this life. I did. So, and they support me, but they like to keep their privacy, and I appreciate that. But definitely, we go get to VW. Go meet probably some of my cousins, and my dad has agreed wants to come out there and be a part of it, and you get to meet pops. And we're having to push that back a little bit right now because my schedule's just gotten really busy. But we're gonna do it this fall sometime. I'm not sure I'm going to. I'm not sure I'm gonna be able to make it to SEMA this year, so maybe just be doing it that week. That may be what the wrecking yard does. Let's see, what else do we got? Yeah, but I do keep my little family private. Here we go. At Hank Hack Bushev 1638. Jerry Wayne, what do I need to do to get a show in Wichita Falls, Texas? Who should I contact in Wichita Falls? Get your I don't know, bro. But I'm always looking for opportunities, man. Me and my manager produce a lot of my own shows. All it really needs a venue. It holds about 200 people with some decent sound and lighting. And if you know somebody's got a venue like that, you'd like to see me perform there, by all means, reach out to jwlcomedy at gmail.com, and we'll try to make it go. We'll try to make some happen. We're always looking for opportunities. So thank you guys, as always, for sharing your Sunday with me. You know, it's a little chunk of time, and I appreciate it. It's wild to think of how much of my life in just a few years was centered around this little shopping strip on West Gray in Houston, Texas. That was my whole universe. It was Rachel and Pete and all these people. And Pete's still out there somewhere. This guy's somehow still on the Houston Rodeo Council and teaches kids or something, which is baffling me. The guy's a nightmare. When I decide to tell the stories about Ford Contour, I might tell you some stories about this guy. Don't you know? When his behavior of women got bad, I had to start getting involved. It's baffling to me. People do that stuff and just get away with it and go on living their life. And probably tell you I will probably never ever do a show for the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo because, ooh, that's just not my bag, man. Messing around with a dude like that, no more. It's wild. It's wild to think how much my life was centered around that. I drive by it now, and there's just condos there where it was. They tore it all down. They built condos. The old Kroger we called Roger because the K was always broken. It's still there. I don't miss all of it, especially the bad I was doing. But man, to be on that main stage at the old laugh stop one more time with a full room, the stage used to vibrate when you were beating them to death. When you were getting them, you could feel the laughter through the stage vibrate. Man, just lean against that hallway. There's a little hallway to go to the stage, and just to hang out in that hallway and lean back against the wall one more time, watch Ralphie or Patrice O'Neill just beat the piss out of a room full of people, just beat them to death. So glad that I got to experience that. I got to work with Patrice. I got to work people who turned out to be really big names in comedy. I got to work with a lot of them. Like I said, not all of them were good, but a lot of them were great. I got everything I ever wanted there. That's where I got Rachel. And I didn't know it yet. Some blessings are hard to understand at first. Had my career shot off then, I would have missed out on my whole life with Rachel and kids. More than likely, I would have, at the rate I was going, I would have been one of those comedians that they found in a hotel room one day. I mean, that was the path I was on. I was very self destructive. I was in a foreign, I had never been around people. I'd never been around performers and people like this who just lived their life this way. I'd been a blue collar guy my whole life. It was a, and I went a little crazy. I got free. I got real free, and I went a little crazy. Problems is you've been told everything's bad your whole life. The minute you find out one of those things ain't bad, you decide they were lying about everything, and you want to do it all. So I try to be honest with my kids. I didn't even know who I was yet. Like I've learned to be thankful for that and appreciative of the work I've had to do in my career to overcome a lot of the damage I did to myself back then. I'm thankful for the work I get to do now. Tell you guys all the time, I'm rooting for you. You know, really am. Can't say it enough. You say a zero something, there's room at the table for everybody. I'm rooting for you. Ooh, I'm exhausted. This has been a wild ride the last couple of months since I started doing this. It's going to be a little wilder for a little longer because I got stories I need to get out. Glad y'all are here to listen to them. Maybe even pick up how not to screw up some stuff for yourself in it. Who knows? Or at least commiserate and being another guy that screwed up stuff and figured out a way to get out of it and grow up a little bit. I'm JW. I love you. Boy, she was bad. Who's gonna drive you home? Eventually, it's me. I got to drive her.